guys, I just wanted to clarify a few things from the meiosis video. So hopefully you recall that humans and most organisms, most plants and animals, have 2 copies of each chromosome, meaning that we have 2 alleles for every gene. We get 1 copy from each parent, so 1 from mom and 1 from dad. So here's chromosome from mom and here's chromosome from dad. These have the same genes on them. And then here's a different chromosome. We have 2 copies of that one and another chromosome that we have 2 copies of. That makes us diploid. So the word diploid means double. Diploid organisms have 2 copies of each chromosome. If we gave all of our genetic material to our children, if we passed on both of those chromosomes, then they would end up with 4 copies of each trait, and their kids would end up with 8 copies. So that wouldn't work very well. So we make special reproductive cells called gametes that have only 1 copy of each chromosome. And so those cells that have only 1 copy of each are called haploid. Haploid means single. This is an image of the human karyotype. Karyotype's not a word I'm expecting you to remember, but it means the number, size, and shape of chromosomes in an organism. So this is what humans have. We all have, let me move over here, 23 different kinds of chromosomes. The last one, the 23rd, are the sex chromosomes, so X and Y determines your gender. So notice that we have 2 of each of these. So for chromosome number 1, we have 2 copies. For chromosome number 2, we have 2 copies. So 2 times 23 means we have 46 chromosomes actually in our bodies. And then this sex chromosome over here is important. If you have 2 X chromosomes, you are a female. If you have 1 X and 1 Y, you are a male. So females always pass on an X to their kids because that's all that they have to offer. The male either passes on the X or the Y in his gametes, so that's why it's the male that determines if the baby's going to be a boy or a girl. That comes from the daddy. All right. So fancy word up here, homologous. Homologous chromosomes mean that set of the maternal and the paternal chromosomes. So 2 chromosomes that are really the same chromosome type. You know, they have the same genes in all the same locations, but the alleles might be different. So they're not identical chromosomes because maybe this one has well, let's say if this was the eye color gene, maybe this one has an allele for brown eyes and this one has an allele for blue eyes. So they both have the eye color gene in the exact same spot, but it might be a slightly different form of that gene, a different allele. So they're not identical, but they're basically the same chromosome, so they're called homologous. Homo, again, meaning same. Logo, it has, I think it means location, so same gene, same location. That's where that word comes from. Independent assortment we learned about with Mendel. So kind of the same as the segregation thing that we talked about. Alleles segregate into gametes in a random way. So in meiosis, when the homologous chromosomes line up, it's not always mom's on the left and dad's on the right. It could be, or normally they're just kind of mixed up, so it doesn't really matter which one's on which side. It'll be random. And then everything on this side will go into this gamete. Everything on this side will go into this one. So you're going to get a nice mix of alleles from one side of the family and alleles from the other side of the family. So that helps to increase genetic variation in the kiddos. And the other thing that increases variation is this thing called crossing over, where homologous chromosomes will line up next to each other and then they'll do this swapping thing. So you can see how this orange one and this yellow one are switching around, so they're going to switch some genes. And then again, the the other ones, the red and the green, are also going to switch in different places. So you end up with a whole mix of chromosomes and different genes on them. So everything's random. You never know which allele is going to go where. All right. So at this point, you're going to do your meiosis modeling, which is kind of tricky. So find a teacher to help you out with that. And when you're done with that, there is another set of Punnett square practice worksheets for you to work on now that you have a better idea of really what's going on to mix up those different alleles. Have fun.